All right. Hey, I am Kate Parker. I am coming to you from Atlanta, and I'm super excited to be here with Emily and with Katie. And I'm going to give everybody's little bios. We're going to have a conversation. We just want to remind everybody to mute themselves and to also, if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we will answer them. We'll get to them as soon as we can. And all right, so you guys ready? Super excited to do this. So Emily, is it Pilloton? How do you pronounce your last name?
Pilloton.
Okay, I wasn't even close on either of those. Okay. Emily is the founder and executive director of Girls Garage, which I think is pretty obvious based on her background. And she is a designer, a builder, an educator, and an author. She's taught thousands of young girls how to use power tools, weld, and build projects for their communities. She has presented her work and ideas on the TED stage, the Colbert Report, and in the documentary film, If You Build It. She is currently a lecturer at the College of Environmental Design at the University of California, Berkeley, and lives in San Francisco Bay Area, where her power is currently out for the past 2 days. And Katie over here with the beautiful siding behind her. Katie Hughes is the founder and executive director of Girls Build in Portland. And she is passionate about girls exploring the world of building, from hammering to taking stuff apart. She wants girls to learn to be fearless. And within 10 years of teaching building summer camps under her belt, this carpenter hopes that every little girl gets to fall in love with swinging a hammer. I think this is so amazing. I'm Kate Parker. I'm an author and a photographer. So I just finished my 4th book. It's called Play Like a Girl. It's all about soccer and the love. I grew up playing soccer and the life lessons that girls and women can learn through soccer. My first book was called Strong as New Pretty, which was basically about I'm a mom, I have 2 girls, and it really just started as a very small personal project for me, trying to show that honestly, like who my girls were and what they look like, because 99% of the images that I saw of little girls and women were filtered or face-tuned or altered in some way. And it just made me angry that my girls thought that they had to look that way to be beautiful. So I started shooting them as they were, which was emotional and fearless and not smiling for the camera, and their hair wasn't brushed. So that's how that project started for me, and continue to shoot projects and things like that really close to my heart. So, all right, we're going to get started here. So, okay. This is actually a question for both of you guys, Emily and Katie. Why is it important for girls to build?
Katie, go ahead.
Okay. I think it's actually important for everyone to build. There's something about building that is makes you so present in your body, and it makes you in tune with the way that the world works around you. And the other, what I see with the girls that we teach is I see them trying new things. I see them persevering a lot, trying through failure. And the big thing that I see is getting things wrong. And I think that in our society, we need to get things wrong more. And for our girls, they get something wrong. And I'll put wrong in quotes because it's not what they planned, but maybe it's actually better. And I really like that part of it. So I like that part of it. And I also just think that we need to be more connected to our physical world in a way that we aren't anymore. We are on screens a lot, especially right now with virtual learning. And there's something to be said for just going out for an afternoon and building a fort or a tree house or a birdhouse or whatever it might be. And I think that it's empowering for anyone.
Emily?
Yeah, I would just add on to that. I mean, Katie, as for some background here, Katie and I have known each other for a long time, and we've taught together. Mm-hmm. And so I would say everything that Katie said, I fully agree. I also would add that, my own background's in architecture, and when I studied architecture, it wasn't just because I loved buildings as objects, but I like the idea of making space in the world and what it means to make physical space that's designed for everyone, that is beautiful, physical space like tells us how and where we are honored and where we belong. And so I think that the act of building is an entry into that as well, that for girls to pick up power tools and to physically edit and shape the world is hugely powerful, because it means that they're no longer just players within the world, but agents of its authorship. And that instead of just walking through the world as an observer, you have the physical tools to change it. And that's not a thing that most young girls are taught or shown. And so for me, the power tools, the chop saws, the welders are really great metaphors, and in a mindset that allows girls to just think about the world as a place that can be changed, and that their role and their voice in that can make a difference.
That's so amazing. I had not thought about it in that way. Just think, oh, I understand how that was made. I understand, like, as a girl, it just gives you power. I love that so much. Can you guys talk a little bit about who taught you? How did you learn? And what age and the background and why, like, how did you get interested in that? Go ahead, Katie.
Okay. So my story starts, I like to say it starts with a cat elevator. So when I was really little, it was my mom raised us as a single parent with I have two sisters. My dad died when I was very young. And so we kind of had all of our dad's tools that he used. My mom wasn't a builder. And so my middle sister, Bridget, we'd go out just exploring in our yard and do random things. And we built a tree house in our front yard. And then we attached a cat elevator to it, which was simply two ropes that we tied around our cat's belly, our poor cat. And we would haul her up this tree. And it was like the most miserable thing for her. But I think that's like my port of entry into building, where I thought like kind of that sense of agency of like, I can build anything I want. And I grew up on a farm. So I grew up.
What age was the cat elevator built at?
I was about 3.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. My sister was 7. I was 3. I actually checked my mom with this. I was like, Mom, did you really let us build a tree? Because I was like, you know, like when you're a little kid, you think like I did this thing, but really like somebody was there with you. She's like, no, the two of you did that on your own.
Wow.
Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And
You're
so
a prodigy.
yeah. Well, it wasn't that fancy, but yeah, it worked. And yeah, so then I grew up on 10 acres. So I did a lot of like animal pen fixing and things like that. But then after I graduated from college, I went and did a year as an AmeriCorps volunteer with Habitat for Humanity. So I really kind of honed my house building skills that year. And then I just started working as a carpenter after that.
Oh, really? Okay. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, Emily.
Yeah, no cat elevator, although that's genius. Would have been a dog elevator in my house. But no, I had a similar, like as a kid, I think I always have had sort of a propensity for building things with my hands, taking things apart. I one time took apart my grandmother's rotary telephone just to figure out how it rang. And she was not mad at me. So I do remember that as like a moment where I was given permission to engage with and disassemble and otherwise destroy things. And then I had a really important experience as a high school student too, where I was part of a group of teenagers that went to Belize in Central America. And I spent a summer there working on a service construction project, building a town park. And I was 16 years old. I was, a very petite young woman. And I was like on top of a ladder using power tools and digging and mixing concrete by hand. And I think to Katie's the first thing that you said about being present in your body, that was really an experience that made me feel physically powerful. And also like as this sort of petite young woman that I could build something that big. And so that really like the connection between the physical work and the product I was lucky to experience that at a young age. And then I went on to study architecture because I joke, my mom will laugh at this, that both my grandfathers were engineers and my grandmothers were librarians. And I sort of feel like architecture is like the Venn diagram intersection of those two things. And so I didn't actually learn how to build properly with any sort of craft or technical prowess until I was in graduate school. And I went to the School of the Art Institute in Chicago for an MFA, and they just had tens of thousands of square feet of all kinds of shops, wood shop, metal shop, foundry, light metal, crucibles of like molten metal. And I just spent 2 years, like I walked into those shops and said, teach me everything. Like I want to learn how to weld. I want to do all the things. So I really credit my MFA program for learning those technical trade skills, but it was first piqued my interest in when I was a teenager, which is now my favorite age group to teach.
Okay. Why teenagers?
We teach girls ages 9 to 18, and I love them all for different reasons. It feels very different. Like Katie, I'm sure like we could talk all day long about like the 9-year-old who starts with us when they're 9, and then they leave us as like, I have 18-year-old girls who are voting for the first time now, who I've known since they were 9. I think teenagers, I also have a stepdaughter who's a senior in high school. There's something like very raw and authentic about that age, where you have grown into your body in a way where you like this physical act of building feels purposeful and important, but you're still very hopeful and optimistic about the world, and yet also like got a little bit of sass and critique about it. Like I think this generation has a greater vocabulary and understanding for things going on in the world. And it seems like teenagers right now are really at the intersection of all those things, and giving them tools to express that is really wonderful to witness. And like, I'm happy to provide a space where teenagers can take all of their emotions and put it into something physical.
Mm-hmm. And for you guys, both of you guys, do you have a favorite, I guess, medium or project that is like your favorite thing to build or favorite thing to work with girls on, that you find is like the most inspiring for them, or like a great entry point? Is there like memories of great projects that you both have done?
I think for me, it's actually not a project, it's a tool.
Mm-hmm.
So the chop saw for me is, so the chop saw is a pretty large tool. So
I was hoping you would go into what that was.
Okay, yes.
I was like, chop saw, Google.
Chop saw, what is that? So a chop saw can have a 12-inch blade, and they're really imposing, and they sit on a bench top. And when you're standing in front of it, you have your hands on it, and you're just kind of this small person, especially if you're 9 years old or 10 years old, standing in front of it. And it's very powerful. It'll cut through, a 2x4. It also cut through like a 4x4 or 6x6, right?
Wow.
Those are big pieces of wood. And and what I love is, what I actually often talk about is, we have our week-long summer camps, and in the beginning of the week, the girls walk up to this saw and they're like, absolutely not, like this is insane. And we show them all the safety things, and we say, listen, if you're safe, we're right here. If you follow directions, everything's going to be just fine. Mm-hmm. And so they like put their wood on there, and they put their hand on it. And when they hit the trigger at first, we always say like, just hit the trigger. And it kind of like bounces a little bit, and you can just see them like, they let go, and they're kind of like, and then they do it again. And it's just a very powerful feeling. And what I like to do is fast forward then to the end of the week, where we have parents come, and we do this scavenger hunt, where the girls, like, you have to find the spot where you drive a nail or drive a screw, or and one of them is use a chop saw. So you're gonna just like show off, but we do it as a game. And the girls kind of like stride up to the chop saw like ain't no thing, and they get their wood, and the parents are like, wait a minute, what's happening here? And they're like looking at their like 60-pound child, and they're like, she's not really gonna do this, even though they know that that's why they sent her here. And she'll put the wood on there, and she'll put her hand up on that trigger, and inevitably they say like, right, that's it, like, are you sure you should do that? Yeah. Like, ugh. And I just love it, because it's like the like Friday kid forgets who she was on Monday. And she's like, looks at them like, of course I can use a chop saw, like, please, I am 10. And then she'll like cut it. And it's just so great. And it's just, you see that growth. I think that timidity from the first day to the last day. And I think for me, I feel like that is what they take with them, is like, I tried this new thing, it was scary, and I loved it, because they always inevitably love it. I think Emily will agree. It's like one of the most fun saws that you can use. And And it's just big and it's really empowering. And I think like they take that with them and they try big, hard things outside of camp and tools as well.
I love that. And Emily, how about you? A project or a saw or?
Yeah, well, the chop saw, I'm gonna like pivot because our chop saw is right there, and
Perfect.
it's right underneath the wall that says "Fear Less, Build More" for exactly that reason, Katie. Because it's like, I mean, that saw is bigger than a girl's. The blade is like twice as big as a 9-year-old's face. So, yeah, definitely chop saw. I would also say we do some MIG welding, and side note, there is not a lot of welding safety gear that fits 9 and 10-year-old girls. So often we have to put the helmet on them and then like jam a glove or a beanie, like just to get the band to fit their tiny heads. But that's a similar experience. I think they like the idea of sparks and heat and UV rays is like, I mean, it's dangerous. You can like, things can go wrong. And yet, like there were 2 pieces of metal and now there is 1, and you fused it together. And that feels like you're a superwoman. Like I just wielded a lightning rod. So I think that's one of my favorite media. I love seeing girls, like I love what you said, Katie, about the Friday you forgetting the Monday you. Yeah, I always say that they walk in one way and then they weld and they walk out like 3 inches taller. It really like changes the way you think about what you can do. So I love welding. I love the chop saw. I also have, this is a recent thing. We just got this new machine called a risograph printer. And it's sort of like if screen printing and a Xerox machine had a child, that would be the risograph. It's a way of making multiples really quickly in single color runs. And anyway, this has become a medium that I think is also important, the act of printmaking and making public art in response to what's going on in the world. That's like less about a tool and more about expression. I think we can do that in wood and metal, but there's something very like visual and immediate about taking an idea or a feeling out of your head and putting it on paper and then putting it up on a wall. That is rewarding in a different way.
Oh, that's awesome. I am booking the flight out to you guys to take pictures as soon as all this is over. I mean, it sounds like I don't know. I get like, I'm so excited for these girls. I have a couple of questions like that popped up. Do you ever do this for women? Do you have women like women's camps? Because I would like to come to one.
Yeah, we started this a year ago we started women's classes. So we didn't do a women's camp. We want to do a women's camp though, because when the parents are dropping off the kids, all the moms are like the kids like kind of wanting them to like, okay, mom, and the mom's like, but wait, like, oh wait, what is that? Like the mom's like trying to like come back in. Yeah. And there's definitely an excitement there. And so yeah, we've done our women's classes and they're a blast. And it's really fun to see adult women trying the same thing for the first time, trying all these tools, and really empowering and exciting. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't stop the thought that, you know, you can be better than you were on Friday than you were on Monday, or feel more confident. And I think that it's and it's so nice. It's so nice to see it in your girls. And if I saw my girls doing that, I'd be like, no, I want in on this. This looks awesome.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, we used to do a workshop called Welding and Wine, or rather Welding and Then Wine.
Like ellipsis.
Yeah, that was really fun. You know, we have actually cut back a lot on the adult workshops just because we have such a long wait list of girls, and it feels like that's our highest service. But we do a mother-daughter workshop. That's always really fun, because same thing, the moms will come and say like, my daughter knows how to weld and I don't, and that feels deeply unfair. So yeah, it's really, the mother-daughter workshops are so fun, because often the girl who's attending has been here before, and she's like, Mom, let me show you how it's done. And it's so interesting watching that dynamic of like, who's the expert and who's the teacher and who's still learning. So my own mom was with us for a mother-daughter workshop, and I realized like it's been however many years, 10 years that I've been doing this, and I had not yet taught her how to use a chop saw. And so this was like last year. And Katie, I think you had this experience recently too, teaching your own mother how to use tools. So the intergenerational experience is really fun. And I think this is a thing that is really unique to building is like, it's such a great equalizer. Like you can be great at math, you can be great at art, you can be horrible at math, you can be whatever. And when we pick up a drill, like it's sort of this thing that is, we're all kind of on the same level when we start. And that's true whether you're 9 or 59.
That's amazing. So you guys talked a little bit about like that Friday girl or the Monday girl and the Friday girl. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe just a specific success story or the before and afters, the thing that you ultimately want the girls to get out of this? And what do you want them, if you could pick like a couple things, what do you want them to change or feel differently about themselves, learning to build?
There are so many things, but one of my favorite stories is this mom who wrote me. I have 2 stories.
Okay.
Okay, great. This mom wrote me after the first year of camp, and she said, "I have to tell you what happened. We were walking down the street, and my daughter, who was 9, said, 'Mom, wait right there for 1 second.' And then she said, and then her daughter walked away from her. And when she got about 10 steps away, she turned around and said, 'Look, did you see my swagger?' And it was like amazing, and that's I was just like, mission accomplished, like that's great. Another story is this mom who wrote me just last summer and said, we my daughter, she's a gymnast, and she'd come to our camps, and they were wanting to get a gymnastics beam to buy one, and they were super expensive, and her parents were like, absolutely not, like we can't buy that. And the dad goes, but you could girls build it. And they're like, you should turn that into a verb. And they went to the lumber store, and they picked it out, and they built their own whatever it's called, gymnastics bar thing. And I think that part for me was that is a big part of what I want, is for them to like people to realize, girls to realize, if you want something, you can just build it. You don't have to order, you don't have to wait for someone to build it for you. Like you can go out there and get it, and it's worth trying because you didn't have it before.
That's amazing. Yeah. Cause it's also like, well, yeah, you could, or, things happen so quickly, but also it may not, the things that you need sometimes are not built, like it's so specific to what you need. And I think that, it empowers girls to invent stuff, that's,
Absolutely.
I need a phone stand that goes like this on my bed or whatever the thing is. I don't know. I love that. I think that's such a cool thing to open up your mind that way. Emily, did you have a story?
Yeah, I have. We're going on our not 8th year. Is that right? 8th year of Girls Garage, and so I have girls who have literally, like a handful of girls who came to the very first summer camp ever in 2013, and they're either about to graduate from high school or just graduated from high school. I see, hi Jackie. I see someone whose granddaughters have both been in our program for 8 years. And so I think like the thing I want them to leave with, I think one of the great gifts and privileges, and I feel very honored to know girls for that big a chunk of their life. And so I do feel like the act of growing up at Girls Garage is really special. And I want girls to leave when they graduate from high school. Well, there's now girls who've graduated from high school and they're still working here, so we can't get rid of them. But I want them to leave like into whatever college program or career. I'm not actively pushing girls into STEM or the trades. Many of them end up in those spaces, but I just want them to walk out of Girls Garage feeling like there are no limits other than the ones they impose on themselves, and that no one can tell them what they should do or shouldn't do, what title they should have or shouldn't have. That's true whether you go to med school, whether you become a trade welder, or any other career. And so I just feel like there's a mindset and an attitude that grows exponentially after years and years of coming here. And to witness that is like such a gift. And I just keep thinking about, like, if we were to add up all the girls, Katie, that have been to your program and ours and all the other programs that we know that are similar, like that is a formidable cohort of young women who are going out into the world like with their brains on fire. And that's really exciting to me. Like, what is that going to mean when those girls go into positions of leadership or of public policy or they're, you know, working in engineering firms. Like the world is going to look different because they have that attitude.
That's amazing. You're making an army of these capable, confident, powerful girls that can literally build whatever they need.
Yeah.
I love it.
The other thing I just want to say really quick is this has been a recent development. Like, I think it's been wonderful to also then see girls who know who they are here. And then they start to make connections like, oh, maybe that thing out there isn't so out of reach, or maybe that person that I admire is just an email away. So I'm going to just read a quick thing. We had a girl, there's a girl named Aisha who's been coming here for a few years, and she's been part of our design build program. She's been part of our activist art program. And she very recently printed a really beautiful poster that's a portrait of Linda Sarsour, who is an activist and one of the co-founders of the Women's March. And so she made this beautiful poster of Linda Sarsour, and we posted it on Instagram and tagged Linda, and Linda replied. And so I wrote back to her and I was like, this was made by this girl, Aisha, like she would love to send you a copy. And Linda said, yes, send me one. And so we packed up this poster for her, and Aisha wrote this note, and it says, thank you for being such an inspiration for me and other female Muslim youth. Your resilience and persistence has inspired me to use my voice to speak up for those in our community whose needs and concerns have long been ignored by those in power. Thank you again for being a beacon of hope during times when hope is easily lost. So I think this is also like the product of, that has nothing to do with power tools, but it has a lot to do with power. And so I think that's like, we also want our girls, Katie and I, to leave our programs like with a sense of activism with any of the tools that they've learned.
I love that she, you know, I think just the act of Linda acknowledging what she did makes Linda, like you said, makes her feel, and what she does, not so far out of reach. It, you know, it normalizes her and makes you feel like, and all those girls feel, I could do that. You know, I think that is so amazing. All right. So we all are authors, and I would love to hear, and my books are photo books, and they're just books, you know, the books with in the words of the girls themselves, the quotes about what makes them confident, what makes them feel strong, and what makes them happy. And it's, again, like I said, trying to shoot girls engaged in a passion and then the girls, my hope is girls get their self-esteem and self-worth from the thing they are passionate about, whatever that thing is, if it's sports, if it's theater, if it's building, and then less of their self-esteem comes from what people think of them or what people say to them. And for me, that thing was soccer, and I was so thankful for that. And I was so thankful that that soccer and sports encouraged me, all those parts of me that would have been softened or sanded off, which was that I was loud and I was bossy and I was aggressive. And teachers didn't love that part about me, but my coaches loved those things about me. And my latest book literally about, like, I'm so thankful to this sport for making sure I didn't lose those qualities, because I need them, and we need them as women, we need them as mothers, we need them as, you know, in our jobs, you know, and I'm so thankful that I didn't lose those. I would love to hear from you two a little bit about your book. What is, like, somebody reading that book, what is the message you hope they take away? What do you want them to learn? Who is it for? And a little bit about sort of the process of making it, because I think that's so interesting. Emily, you want to start?
Sure. Yes, I have, this is my book, this is Katie's book. So Katie and I have been writing books simultaneously for the past, 3 years?
Yeah.
And mine came out in June and Katie's came out just a few weeks ago. And so I feel like we were on these parallel railways and had many of the same challenges, but also the same goal, which I think was to create books that felt very much like our organizations in printed form, and to actively invite girls to join a community and a movement of fearless builder girls who exist, who we both know, but whose stories are not told. Like, you look through Katie's book and there's photos of 10-year-olds welding, and where else do you see those images? So my book was it took 3.5 years to write. It's 300 something pages. It's about 60% tool encyclopedia. So there's like pages and pages of tutorials about every tool you could imagine, illustrations, how-tos, nerdy facts about lumber, etc. But then it's also a series of projects, build it at home projects, essential skills like how to fix a flat tire and how to make your toilet stop running. And then there are also profiles of really incredible builder women, ages like 13 to 93. There's a woman in the book who was a welder, a real Rosie the Riveter in World War II. And then there are multiple girls who are part of the Girls Garage program, and really everything in between. So it's a hefty tome, but I wanted it to feel like the book you can put on your workbench when you're 13, and it's going to be with you until you're 83, and that it will be your best friend. Like there's no reason to feel alone in the world of building when there are people like Katie and all the women in this book and all the information you ever want to know about a tool, and that there's a community of others like you.
That is amazing. I love that so much. Katie, do you want to talk a little bit about your book?
Sure. Yeah, as Emily said, it's been quite the process. And I think for me, I wanted to make building more accessible, kind of like what Emily was saying. And I wanted to be, it's funny, I help a lot of my friends build. And I was recently working on I was working on her roof, and she was asking me questions about her porch. And I was like, well, honestly, you should read my book. Like, it's in the book. And I really did. I think Emily and I had kind of the same vision of like, I wanted everything to be here. Like, if you are new to building, here's this book, you take it with you. And I wanted to make it like to feel like you were talking to someone about it. And so you wouldn't feel intimidated, that you would feel excited. All the like nerdy things. Like I had a friend just text me and she was like, oh my gosh, screw bits come with the screws sometimes. And I was like, yeah. She's like, I didn't know. This is amazing. Just all those little things that are just like kind of the tricks of the trade, and things that, in my mind, I think you would feel more empowered to know when you go on there. Like when you walk into a hardware store, you walk into a lumber store, that you know the right words. Or like at one point I say like, or you just walk in and say, I'm building this thing and I don't really know what is it, but to be confident in that, because I think that a lot of times women are kind of like not looked down on, but kind of like treated like, oh, okay, we'll help you.
Hey, little lady. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So that was part of it. But then the other part was kind of these amazing girls that I was meeting, and I wanted to show them off, and I wanted to show off girls from every background, from all over the country. There are girls from Mexico, just like, one of our girls has Down syndrome, one of our girls has cerebral palsy, like just things that they're all doing it, and they're all finding happiness in it and solace in it and themselves in it. And I wanted other girls to just flip through that book and see that. And that's why I did the interviews as well. I wanted, you might find a girl who looks nothing like you, but when you read her interview, you're like, oh my gosh, that's me. And if she can do it, I can do it. And there's this one quote that I love. There's this little girl named Bailey. She's freaking adorable. And she says, I can't see it very well out of my eye, and my other eye is a fake eye. And I love building. And even if I had no eyes, I would still build. And it's just kind of like this like optimism and heart with it of like, anybody can do it. And that's what I wanted to express. And, for girls, but also for anyone, Kate, if you picked up the book, I wanted you to be like, well, maybe, if this little 8-year-old's doing it, maybe I could do it too, and that's kind of the feeling. And to really, just like Emily's book, to have everything in there that you needed and to feel like it was accessible.
All right, just so I'm like completely inspired here. What's a good first project? Do you have a good first project that you guys would recommend to me? I could do it with my girls. I have no experiencing. Wait.
I would say build your own toolbox, because then you're going to have a toolbox that's empty, and you're going to be like, well, I can't have an empty toolbox. And then you're going to have to go shop for tools, and then you can go build more stuff.
So wait, build a toolbox out of wood?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually that project is in both of our books. Isn't that
Yeah,
right,
it
Katie? Yeah. Yeah.
I will like compare them and do them. Yeah, I will, because thank you. This is awesome. So we wanted to open this to everybody here. Questions for any of us, for all of us. I see there's like the most adorable dog watching. If the dog has any questions, welcome to ask. So I don't know. Oh, let's see. So will they come through here? Hold on.
Yeah, you can type your questions in the chat, and then I have two that were submitted through email if I could ask those.
Yeah.
All right, the first one is one that Girls Garage gets frequently, and that is, what is your advice for starting similar programs? So if both Katie and Emily could provide some insight on how to do something like what you've done.
Katie and I talk about this all the time. And actually was it 2015? I think Katie was in the Bay Area and we had a conversation about exactly, this is right before you launched Girls Build formally.
Yeah.
And we were like, should we do Girls Garage Portland? And I was like, no, I feel like you are formidable. Like this is your jam. And so I'm like really a fan of when women come together in a specific city, location, community, and look around and identify like, who are we, who are our girls, what can we build in our community? And I keep coming back to this, like everyone asks us, are we going to franchise? They're going to be a Girls Garage in Philadelphia. And I hesitantly say no, not because I don't want girls everywhere to be building, but because I really think there's something beautiful about the placeness and the sort of intimacy of what both of our programs have. And we don't have like revolving doors of instructors. We have girls that have been with the same instructors for 7 years, and there are things that can't be copied and pasted. And so I am like always really excited to connect with people who are like, I want to do this in my town. What do I do? And I think that does come down to like gathering up a small group of really committed, talented women, and then asking and looking around and saying, what can we do? What do girls need? What do girls want? And creating physical space for them to build those things. And that looks very different I used to teach in rural North Carolina, and that approach to the design build work I did there is very different than how we do it in the Bay Area. So I do think there's like some specificity of community that should not be ignored.
Yeah, and I would add to that, we get this question a lot too. And one of the kind of questions we get specifically is like, oh, I really like this idea. How do I do it myself? Or do you have time for a quick call? I would say it's not a quick process. And I would say that you have to have skilled builders as part of your team. Even if you are not that skilled builder, you need to seek them out. Safety is really incredibly important. And if you don't know how to use a tool, even if you are learning, you are not skilled enough to teach that to children. And so it doesn't hurt to go looking for women who have that skill and bring them on board. And then I think like Emily's saying, like, there is a heart to it. It's not just the skills, there is a heart to it. And we had a group of women come out to our camp and they said, wow, there's something here that I can't put my finger on, but it's bigger than the tools. And I think that like what Emily's saying about the sense of place, that comes from the community, and it comes from like similarly, we have this core group of instructors. We travel all over Oregon, and they travel with us. And so it's the same people working the camps. And yeah, there's just something really specific to it. And I think keeping your kind of eye on the prize, which is empowering and safety and the tools. I think that all kind of helps you focus and not get mission creep.
Yeah, Katie, I also am struck by like there are skilled builders, and then there are also skilled builders who know how to teach skilled building. And like I've met tons of really incredible builders, but if you ask them to relay that message to a 10-year-old, it's like it doesn't work. So I think there's a very unique Venn diagram of like knows
Yes.
how to build, knows how to be around kids, knows how to build a community. And there's not that many folks right in the middle of it. And so when we find them, we're like, come
Great.
and stay forever. And
Yes.
that's such a special skill set. And I think it's worth, for anyone who is interested in starting something similar, like seeking those people out and investing in them, giving them what they need to thrive within the organization, is the greatest resource.
And I would add to that, and maybe this is what you were saying, Emily, pay them well. You cannot do this with volunteers. Volunteers are not reliable. Volunteers they're not going to be as committed. But if people come back to us every year because the job pays well and they feel valued and they give it their all. They're arriving to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and they're leaving 6 o'clock at night. And they are as happy and as excited when the girls arrive as when the girls leave. And I will pay so much money to keep that person with us. And, and it's a quality experience, and the parents see that too, and they know that. So don't hire a bunch of high schoolers. That's thanked us for that one time. So yeah,
that is also for me, that's like a political statement too. It's like women who have skills and who are creative and are committed to teaching deserve to be paid a lot. And like I think we can all agree that teachers are underpaid, that most women do a lot of like invisible and emotional labor. And a lot of that's embedded in our program. We're not just teaching the chops out. We're like, don't forget the fruit snacks. And your cat is sick. Like, tell us about that. Like, it's everything all at once. Yes. And so it's so valuable. And it's not just valuable to us as leaders who need to hire people. It's valuable to girls. And if you have like a revolving door of volunteers or high school students, like they're very well intentioned and often do come with skills, but the girls feel the disconnect, and they know like, you may not be here next year, so maybe I'm not going to tell you about my sick cat. And it's all those like little intangible relational things that I think makes the learning stick and makes the impact stick.
That's awesome advice. I hope somebody in Georgia is hearing that. Selfishly.
As a follow-up, what type of insurance do you have to cover your programs?
All of it.
That was all the insurance. Like when they ask me, I'm like, just the highest, the most money. And like, there's even one that's like, do you really want the terrorism insurance? I'm like, yeah, yes, whatever. Absolutely. They're like, it has to be like, go through Congress and pass as an act of terrorism through Congress. I'm like, yeah, we'll take it. Yep. That insurance, you just can't have too much. Yeah.
I do remember the very first call I had with an insurance broker and they were like, so tell me about what you do. I'm like, well, we teach 9-year-olds how to weld, and they're like, what? I mean, I felt like it was like Lloyd's of London, like we're insuring like J-Lo's butt or something, like just totally outside of any matrix for what's insurable. Yeah, I mean, this goes back, like safety is paramount, and it's not just because I'm scared of being sued. It's just, it's good practice. It's good mindset. It's also like, I try to yes to all the insurance, and like knock on wood, I hope we never have to use it, because we do really invest in like safety procedures, making sure that every girl is doing the same thing the same way, and using the same vocabulary so they can help each other. But yeah, I mean, we also have a physical space, so there's property insurance and general liability, and if a girl gets in the car with me because we're going to a job site, like everything. You have to think of all the things.
If someone's walking by and they trip on an extension cord, they're not related to the program. Yeah, parents, just anything and everything. Instructors.
So the insurance is everything.
Yeah, everything. Any possible scenario, we have insurance for it.
All right, next someone asks, what are the biggest lessons you've learned about yourself through watching and teaching your girls in the programs?
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a hard one. I need to think on this for a minute.
I think I would have answered this question differently a year ago. This year has like taught me so many things about myself as a leader that I didn't ever even think about. Katie, I don't like the word leader is like not a thing that I claimed until this year. Like, I think that there's something about that word that just feels like it wasn't made for me. And even though I've led this nonprofit for 12 years. And so I think that one of the things I've learned about myself is like, I know a lot and I also know nothing. Like, I think I know a lot in terms of running a space and building a community and building and what girls need. And also I like to have the mindset that I don't know anything. And that if someone walks in, like, I don't know anything about that person and it's my job to make space for them. And I have to approach things as an amateur because that's what keeps me curious and responsive and connected to people. And so I think being able to hold those two things, like being both the leader and the person who will step up and jump in front of a bus for a girl, like, yes, that's who I am. And also, we're still growing and I have no idea what's going to happen next year. And that's what's exciting and also what keeps us in a place where we can be nimble and respond to the things that girls need.
Yeah, I think being nimble is a really good way to put this job. I think one of the things a few of the things I've learned, like one is like, I can never show enough appreciation for the people that support us and support me. And I'm not the organization, like the instructors and the staff are the organization. And without them, we wouldn't be here. And that like, a thank you goes really far. I feel like, and then, the other thing is like, I think kind of speaking to leadership, kind of going the extra mile for anyone is the thing that stands out in the end. So when a staff person is having a hard day, like when you go and you get them some chocolate and coffee, it's a little thing, but it's the thing that makes them happy to work for you as the boss, like, everyone calls me like boss, and it is this kind of like jokey thing. And but it started to mean a lot more to me, like, oh, I am a boss in this way. And if that's true, then I get to be whatever kind of leader I want. And so I can go get them all, hot chocolates or whatever it might be. I can go make their day a little bit better. And it's the fun part of this job. And then the other part is, it all comes back to me. So if someone gets hurt, that's on me. If someone drops the ball, that's on me. And I think that's part of being a leader, is accepting that responsibility. And then, and I think it makes you a better leader when you accept that. And that's been a big thing that I've learned. Yeah, for sure.
All right, next, what would you like your programs to look like in 10 years?
Ask me in 9.5 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think there's like this instinct to say, we want to grow, we want to get bigger, we want to be everywhere. And that's how startups think. That is not how community-based nonprofits think. And so when I think about 10 years, I don't think about growth in terms of horizontal size. I think about growth in terms of the depth of what we offer to every girl that walks in the door. And so that means like, maybe we won't have 2,000 girls who are part of our program, but for the 200 that are here, we're going to do every single thing possible to help you succeed. If that means I'm writing 15 letters of recommendation for you to get into college at 2 a.m., we're going to do that. If that means that we have to, buy a risograph printer and expand an activist art program, we're going to do that. So I think in 10 years, I would really like to just be doing what we're doing better, deeper, in more meaningful ways. I would love to have a space that we own. That's like a very specific thing, but we currently rent this space and it's beautiful. But I think there's something about like owning a space in the community and saying like, this is our space, we're not going anywhere. Like, you can depend on us to be part of this community. That's a specific thing. But I do think about like our 10-year growth more in terms of depth and meaning and less in terms of quantity and scale.
I think I'd have to second basically everything that Emily said. yeah, I think I hope that we're serving the same number of girls we're serving. I hope that our year-round programming, so we started year-round programming, and we had kind of hit our stride right when COVID hit. We also have some beautiful partnerships with, like one is an architecture firm, and they do an architecture spring break camp for us that we did one hour of it this year, before COVID knocked us out. But I like those collaborations, and I hope that we can form more of those. And yeah, I think supporting other folks, kind of leaning back toward the last question, supporting other folks in starting their own and not feeling that pressure to go do it ourselves. Yeah. And owning our space. I mean, that's like just like a pipe dream. Hopefully not a pipe dream, but it's up here. Yeah.
Did you have startup money, or how did you fund the early years?
No. I often tell the story that so when I was 26, I had a job in the field of architecture that I hated. I worked there for 3 weeks. It was horrible. I quit after 3 weeks and moved back in with my parents, and I had $1,000 in my bank account. And that's the time I chose to start a nonprofit. So, this is also 2008, like the worst recession. I mean, just like you could not have picked worse context for starting a nonprofit. So no, I didn't have startup money. But I did have an incessant, like unending energy to email and bug and nag people until they talked to me. So that's what I did. I felt at the time, this is 2008, I felt like there were people out there who were in the design and architecture and building space that didn't want to be doing plumbing detailing for someone's 5th mansion house, and that they wanted to be doing work that was meaningful. And so I've just first started by reaching out to other folks my age in the same industries and asking, like, how could we reconfigure design and building around community and young people? And I ran a couple fundraisers. Like, I think our first year on our tax return, our income was like $41,000. I didn't take a salary. I didn't take a salary until like 4 or 5 years ago. And it's just incrementally every single year, I think that we've built like trust and relationships that have paid off in dollars, but dollars are never, of course we need to keep our lights on, but I often tell my colleague Christy, who's our director of development, like sometimes we have to trade in the currency of relationships and trust and not dollars. And that's really been the way that we've always grown, and we have grown every year. But no, running a nonprofit is like a constant hustle. You're constantly like either begging or pitching, but also trying to do that within the principles of the mission of your organization. Like, you can't work with every icky bedfellow or like corporation that wants to partner with you and make you their dog and pony show. Like, some money's not worth it. So I think that's the finances of running our operations has been a constant struggle. This is an area where probably both of us have grown, like in learning how to keep an organization afloat and think about growth without jeopardizing the heart of who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we started, I pitched my idea at it was like, I don't remember what they called it now. Anyway, basically people paid to come to this event, like $20, and then if your idea won, then you got the pot. So I won, and we got $1,200, and that is what we used to buy our website, to pay to register as a business in the state of Oregon and federally, and to apply for our nonprofit status. And that was everything. And I similarly, like, I was working as a teacher, and so I would come home and work in the evenings on this job on Girls Build, and then the school closed down, which is, I was the only like person excited about that, and I got laid off, so I was on unemployment. And so I got to do the first year of Girls Build on unemployment, and it was perfect for me. And I should have taken a salary after the first year, and I paid myself $15 an hour. But yeah, it's hard in the beginning. I remember someone asking me one time on this like panel discussion, like, how do you balance like your work? How do you have a work-life balance? And I was like, I don't. Like, I have 2 small kids, I'm writing a book and I'm running a nonprofit. I don't have a work-life balance, but if you want something, you have to work really hard for it. Like, that's what it boils down to. It's not going to fall into your lap. And I know that we've both worked really hard to make our nonprofits what they are. And it is a constant hustle. And especially right now during COVID, I don't know about you, Emily, but a lot of funders are pulling back. And it's hard because you were counting on, you count on those funders every year, and they say they're going to come back stronger next year or whatever, maybe, but you just don't know. So you're always hustling and you're always asking for money. And the other thing that we've done really well is, like, with our staff, is we are really, really frugal. And we're really frugal during the year. And when it comes to summer camps, we spend all the money. And so, like, they know, like, we're going to reuse all these paintbrushes right now. We're not going to buy all these things. You can find that for free. Like, that's kind of our mantra from September through May. And then in summer camp, it's just like a bounty, and we spend everything then. And we want it to feel really like we have everything we need. And so that's how we spend our money. And the staff is all on board with that, because they like kind of spoiling the kids in that way, and they like those feelings, and we pay everyone well. But yeah, it's a journey for sure to start a nonprofit, but it's definitely worth it, I would say.
All right, we talked about the future and the past, so the present. How can we engage with y'all during this COVID chaos? How are your programs continuing now?
Yeah, ours, so at the beginning of the pandemic, shelter in place in March, we moved all our programs into a virtual space. I remember texting Katie and being like, I'm now an assembly line factory worker. I just assembled 200 birdhouse kits. What are you doing? She's like, same thing.
Yeah.
So, carpentry is not the easiest thing to teach via Zoom. But I think both of us, I definitely felt like we're not going to cancel anything. We didn't cancel anything. We just had to adapt and find a way to stay connected to girls. Because I also knew that, like, girls were going to be home. There was an even greater need for creative activity, for togetherness. So we did that in the spring. The summer was sort of a hybrid model. We were a little bit virtual, a little bit in person. We were only in person for this huge chicken pavilion project that it was a 500 square foot like coop and run, and it was huge. And we were able to build that because it was a construction site. It fell under the county provisions for construction. And then we just recently, this past September, have come back to in person, but only in groups of 4 to 6, and everything is very sort of regimented. And it's interesting. I thought it was going to be the worst, and it's been kind of a blessing, like, to have such intimate space with 4 girls who normally there's 12 of them, and I might talk to you for 3 minutes, but then I got to go help Juniper, and then I got to go help Lana. And it's been kind of a blessing to just have a different dynamic in the classes. And we have, unfortunately, we've not been able to welcome strangers or visitors in the same way. But I think this is one really great way that we have been able to engage with folks from everywhere that we wouldn't have thought to do otherwise. Like, Katie and I had ideas for book tours and events, and can't do any of that. So here we are. And this is, like, really special in a different way. So there have been some discoveries that we would not have tried if not for COVID. And we're trying to turn those into opportunities for the way we roll in the years to come.
Yeah, we similarly, we did virtual camps this summer. We also did in-person camps. They felt different. At first I got a little teary-eyed when the first, like, camper showed up, and we had everything, like, cordoned off. So, like, your parent pulled up, you opened the door, and you stepped into this, like, walkway that was all caution tape, and then you didn't leave that area for the whole day. Like, you ate there, you built there, you played games there, you stayed 6 feet apart. And, like, when the first girl got out and we, like, did her temperature, and I was just like, my heart just kind of sank, like, what is this world? But then I saw, like, how happy they were, like, they hadn't seen people in months, and it turned out to be okay. And as we did this summer, we did those pods of 10 that didn't leave their area. We sanitized tools, we kind of did everything. It was really intense, but it was good. And then for this fall, we've done 2 things. We have started a program in collaboration with another nonprofit called Wild Diversity, called womxn, and it's in-person, outdoor school educational programming for kids of color, K through 2. It's a mouthful, but basically trying to help students who are virtual learning right now, so that parents can like go back to work and not feel that burden. So that's one thing we're doing. And then we're in Southern Oregon for one of our camps, and that's where I grew up. And there were pretty devastating fires down there this year. So we're partnering with a nonprofit down there called Talent Maker City, and we're building bed frames with fire victims. They then get to take home to their new houses because they don't have any furniture, and then mattresses are getting donated. And the kind of idea there is to building a bed is neither here nor there really. It's about kind of giving them something to do with their days, and a distraction, and just to feel kind of like useful when their whole worlds are falling apart. So those are the two things we're doing. I would say that Emily and I both would say, like, if you have spare change lying around, to throw it our way to each nonprofit. And just just kind of any moral support or whatever it could be. Those are the ways that you can engage right now.
So I think is that the end of our questions? Awesome. I'm so honored to be here, and like I'm so thankful to get to learn more about you guys, what you do, how you're literally changing the world. I think it's amazing, and thank you so much everybody for joining us. And I guess, does anybody, all you guys, like, how can we follow you, keep up with you? What's the best way?
Go ahead, Emily.
I'm pasting our web pages into the chat right now.
Oh, it's so good.
And mine didn't come up as a link, but anyway, we're both on Instagram. We're at _girls garage, and Katie, I think you're girlsbuild_org. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then Amanda just pasted links to all of our books.
Oh, great. Yes.
That's awesome.
Kate, thank you so much for moderating.
Oh my gosh, thank you. This is like my show. I love it. I'm a TV star.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for joining us for this hour too. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.